Charles, what's the best method for storing key phrases? I am going to do a follow-up video to my InfoSec video. I've gotten a lot of feedback on it. I just haven't had the time for it. I will talk about some key phrase best practice methods that can be done. I'm really pushing for a standard with encrypted QR codes for cold wallet generation. I think it was so powerful because the problem is what people do is they write down their keywords, usually on a Word document or something, and print it, or they print a paper wallet as a backup store. But printers are insecure and they tend to keep memories, so you can replay them. So if somebody's used a printer, you can actually reprint a lot of the things that the printer's printed before. So it's not a good approach. And if you had a encrypted QR code, if there was a replay attack, they'd just get another copy of an encrypted wallet. Wouldn't do anything. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I'll do another video for you guys. Charles, as someone who wants to work blockchain tech as career, what college major is more helpful in the field? Math major or CS major? What I would do is do a CS major and 2 minors, do a minor in math and minor in economics. And think a lot about systems theory. You can't go wrong with that. You can do a little bit of everything. Just build stuff. Study tokenomics, write code. Why do you own all 7 multi-key SIGs? We don't. See, people just lie. Lie. No, it's a tripartite structure, guys. You did a great job at Congress. When will you go again? Probably going to go to the Senate next time and working on it. Charles, I love how you are so blunt. I respect everything you and your team do for Cardano. All the best. Well, thank you so much, GNet. I am very blunt at times. It's why a lot of people don't like me. And also a lot of people just seem absolutely convinced I'm the worst human being alive. And they write books about it, and soon to be movies about it. But at the end of the day, I'm just a guy, and I'm trying to figure it out as much as you guys are trying to figure it out. It's complicated stuff. We're literally rewriting the fabric of reality, if you think about it. And I've gone to the ends of the earth, 72 countries. 72 countries. That's a lot. And I've met so many thousands of people. I've been in so many thousands of meetings. All I do all day long is be in one meeting, another meeting, read this book, read that book, read this report, read that report, prep for this. Testify in Congress on one hand and go and talk with the president of Mongolia on the other hand. It's my life, these types of things. And to the people who like me, they say, wow, that's so cool. And the people who hate me, they say it's all made up. It doesn't exist. Or even though it does exist, it in no way impacts anything. And then it's all just an elaborate fantasy. It's a bizarre space. I own 4 companies, and crypto is certainly my biggest. And yet I do stuff in biotechnology, and I do stuff in ag tech, and I do stuff on my ranch. And in all these cases, I'm treated like a human being with good consideration. I'll just give you a great example. The media in Wheatland, the town that I live in Wyoming, they wrote an article about a restaurant that I'm opening in Wheatland called Nessie's, after the Loch Ness Monster. And I went and bought a plesiosaur skeleton. By the way, if you buy dinosaur bones, you think crypto people are shady. It's like dino bone people are the shadiest people in the world. But it was a replica of a plesiosaur. It wasn't too expensive, but it's a beautiful replica. And I'm going to put it in the restaurant, and the body will be in the basement where the whiskey bar is, and then the neck, because it's 40 feet long, will well over 10 meters, will actually go up into the main floor for diners at the Scottish restaurant. Everybody's excited about it. Now, if this was crypto and I announce I'm building Nessie's, I would have 1/3 of the town say Nessie's is a scam, it doesn't exist. I'd have another group of people in town say, well, it does exist, but it'll never be completed. And when it's completed, it won't ever deliver anything, and the food is poison. And then I have another third of people that say Nessie's is our Lord and Savior, and only by going through the divine will of Nessie's can you, in any way, shape, or form, find the true salvation and peace of society. I mean, crypto is weird. It's so weird. It's so toxic at times, and it's so just brutal at times. Just a great example would be I testified before Congress. Not once did I mention Cardano. Not once, because I said I'm representing the industry here, not my company, not Cardano, the entire industry, and why this industry is useful for everyone. So I go up there, and I'd like to believe I did well. Not a single layer one CEO, not a single company in that constellation of things in the top 10 said, retweeted it, congratulations, this is good testimony. Not a single one. You go to cryptocurrency Reddit, before I testified, the vitriol there, the hate there, the statements there that were said. And then afterwards they said, well, you did a good job, but you're still a shitbag. I was fighting for you guys. I was fighting for the industry as a whole. We have to stand together or we will die as an industry. The regulators aren't going to differentiate your token and coin from another token and coin. Bad regulation will affect every single person in this industry. But that's not the maturity and mentality and mindset of the industry. And instead, it's like your thing is evil and my thing is great. And anybody who disagrees with me is evil and wrong. It's just bizarre, and it's very draining at times. And so you have to refresh yourself, and that's why we do the community events, and that's why we talk to people, because in these cases, what they do for you is they show you that, well, that's Reddit and Twitter and the leadership of the industry, the real people who actually use the products and are excited about it, by and large, are good people. By and large, they're really excited about the prospect of using these things to change the world. And if you expose yourself to that, you're happy. But you got to take a shower and scrub yourself off every fucking time you go to these industry events and other things, because these people are just really terrible people. And I don't know why our industry has accumulated so many of them. Certainly there's a lot of egos in medicine. Certainly there's a lot of egos in Silicon Valley. But I've never seen this density of toxicity and self-righteousness and a lack of respect and appreciation for things. It is what it is. Charles, can you discuss what is the relationship between IOG, Cardano, and Mongolia, and what are some of the ongoing projects, and how is adoption in Mongolia going? Well, the people led, as I mentioned earlier in the AMA, 140,000 Mongols are using Cardano in some way, which is really impressive growth and adoption. It would be nice to do a digital identity and a supply chain system, because if you look at the needs of Mongolia in the agricultural sector, there are 5 animal types that are primarily important: horses, camels, the dromedaries, so the Bactrian, the 2-hump camels, not the 1-hump. So you have cattle, you have camels, yaks, you have goats, and you have, I believe, sheep. Of the 5 agricultural animals, or actually horses, as your agricultural animals. The goats are the most important part of Mongolian agriculture because that's where the cashmere comes from. Gobi Group is a gargantuan company, and they export most of that, and they sell at great prices. Um, when you look at the supply chains, there's something called the third neighbor policy, and there's this attempt to be able to try to export a lot of the agricultural goods to the United States and other places without tariffs. The problem is that they have to adhere to certain quality standards, or else the USDA is just not going to let that happen. And so, how do you prove that? There needs to be a blockchain-based system that enables people to basically make statements about the life cycle of the animals and what they've gone through. Now, there's great technology. For example, let me show you this. There's a company called Sears Tag, for example. This link. Yeah, so let me share my screen real quickly here. Share screen. Wow. Wow. There we go. So if you take a look at the Sears Tag, you can actually see these little devices, and they go on the ear of the cattle or the goat or whatever you want, and they're a full computer, and they basically tell you where your animals are at. And they have a little solar panel to keep them going, and they do a whole bunch of things: mortality alerts, activity monitoring, the temperature so they don't overheat, these types of things. This is kind of generation 1 IoT for cattle tagging, and it'd be really cool to see what we could do to get to generation 2, generation 3 stuff. And Mongolia would be a perfect place to pilot it. So if you can get better coverage of the country with some form of telecommunications, so maybe what World Mobile is doing, then you could get reliable connectivity in the most rural of places. And then if you could tag every animal, you could follow the life cycle. Now, it seems like it'd be a somewhat expensive thing to do. There's about 80 million animals in Mongolia, only 3 million people that are used in the agricultural sector. But if you can get to that like $2-3 price point, you're talking about maybe $250 million for end-to-end tracking of all of the animals in the country. It's really not that expensive for all things considered from a nation state viewpoint. And then if you could trace the entire life cycle, you can know where the animal's at, what they've been exposed to, the geographies they've gone to, the diet of plants that they've had. You're not going to get milk sick from them. You can know a lot about the antibiotic intake that they've had, accurate logging, that suddenly export makes a lot more sense. So these are the kinds of things I'm very interested in, and it's a great play for Atala Prism because there's a track and tracing solution and an identity solution, because you can give an identity to a person, you can give an identity to a yak. You can create a verified NFT to represent an asset like a ball of cashmere, these types of things. And it'd be a lot of fun to chase and explore that. So we talked to Abuna, the Minister of Digital Transformation, and a few others in the government. And, at some point, I think we're ready to go. We were scaling up to do something, then COVID hit. And if I have to send a lot of people, it just doesn't work. So I said, all right, well, just Mongolia is not going anywhere. Let's calm down a little bit, and, we'll circle back to it. So hopefully in 2023, we'll be able to do something pretty cool. Isn't that boutique, considering now that most factory farmed is abomination? Yeah, it's pretty bad. And then you got two groups, one that says just eat insects instead. At World Economic Forum, insects are good for you. And then you got another group. They're like, well, just make meat in a lab. So you can either have your cylinder of salmon, or you can have your grasshopper souffle. Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with the real deal, guys. I don't know. Hi, Charles. When will the paper on decentralization be completed? The term is still being thrown around the industry. It's a summer project that Agalos is personally going to attend to. So probably August, September, if I had to guess. But, it just depends. And then the EDI will be established before the end of the year. And then it can be kind of a guiding star for things. Bees, more bees, please. Not the bees, not the bees. Ah! If you guys get that Nick Cage reference, congratulations. You are a nerd. Pray for me, y'all. I leave for rehab this coming week and I'm scared shitless. Well, just, I don't know what you're going through, but you have our thoughts and prayers. Do you ingest lion's mane daily? How much? Can you explain the benefits of whether it's good for elderly cognitive ability? There are placebo-controlled studies from Japan and other places that show that ingestion of lion's mane in the right freshness and the right amount over a gram per day does result in the creation of new nerves in the brain, so neurogenesis. So there's some BDNF action there, and that's directly related to improvement of cognitive decline. Now, the studies that are out of Japan, they're quite small, and they need more studies, I'd say, before you can make a definitive prescription, say there's a causal relationship that the ingestion of lion's mane is actually solving a problem or slowing down a problem like dementia. That said, I'm very bullish and optimistic because it doesn't do any harm. It's not a toxic mushroom. It's quite tasty. It's easy to ingest in many different forms, from raw to tea and powders and so forth. I grow them myself. So when we have our clinic fully operational, we will try to replicate the Japan study and do a placebo-controlled double-blind study. We'll see if the different in dosaging from tablets to powder to tea to raw ingestion have any indication on what we see. The advantage we have is we can actually do brain scans because we have the imaging center to do that. And we also are going to fully sequence the genomes of everybody we do clinical trials on at my clinic. So if we notice that particular patients are especially receptive in the data, that they are telling us that, then what we can do is look at it and see if there's a genetic reason for that, in addition to just a gross thing of age and gender and weight and these types of things. So very exciting potentially. And, as with all things in the supplement business, you have to be careful because people tend to hype things up. But like resveratrol and NAD and other things, there's definitely evidence that this is good for you. And in the case of lion's mane, it's good for cognitive abilities, and you're not going to do any harm taking it. So, try it out and see if it works for you. But we don't have the clinical evidence to say definitively that lion's mane is doing something interesting. Just have some stuff. Have you seen the new Cardano book? I've seen that, but not read. But I hear it's good. Charles, great to have you back. Can you explain what defines settlement time on Cardano? It's probabilistic finality, just like Bitcoin. And so you just have to wait for a series of confirmations. So after a collection of blocks, depending upon your risk tolerance, the chance of a fork or reversal, a rollback, is so low that it's a safe transaction. So I think the rule of thumb we had in the olden days was 15 confirmations, but I don't recall what we've set that parameter at now. And it changes. And there's going to be a lot of changes with some of the new fast settlement papers that we've been writing, and some of we've already released, like ledger combiners and ledger redux, and then also with the input endorsers design, which will have a dramatic change. So currently it's ephemeral, but it's very fast. I mean, you have equivalent finality to Bitcoin in a matter of minutes, whereas Bitcoin takes hours. And that was always the benchmark. And I think for most applications, that's fine. If you need a little faster, there are some hacks that you can do to improve your trust model. And then when we get the new papers, we'll get BFT style instant finality. Hi, Charles. Do you meditate or practice mindfulness regularly, or is meditation retreat a one-off thing? Love you. I do meditate, but not as often as I need to. And right now, I'm really involved in neural stimulation. So you actually map the brain with an EEG, and then you attach electrodes to different parts, and you shock it. And then neurons are kind of electrophilic, so they mimic the signals that they get. So if you shock it just the right way, you can shock the brain into different states. You can make a person feel seasick or drunk or have their head spin, or you can knock them into a hyper-focused state, like a deep alpha state, 13 to 15 hertz, you're in a flow state. So I've been doing a lot of experimentation with that with some domain experts. Hi, Charles. Can stake pools steal our ADA if they're bad people? No. We designed it so that they couldn't. You delegate, they never have access to your ADA. It's a non-custodial staking. Charles, I've been part of Cardano from day one. Something that perturbs me is that you and Vitalik are biting at each other's ankles like Yorkshire Terriers. Give me some evidence of it. Give me, like, what am I doing, man? Outside of a levity here and there, when it's brought up, I seldom think about the guy, talk about the guy, and you're the one talking about him. I have no issue with him. I see him from time to time at events and shake his hand, say, hey, how you doing? 1 minute, 2 minute conversation, move on. He's not my best friend in the whole wide world. We're not going fishing together on the weekends, not holding hands while walking horses off into the sunset. But at the same time, I don't really mind. I think the rivalry has been completely manufactured by the crypto media for some bizarre damn reason. And it's used to sell books. So I don't have an issue. But if you give me some specific issues here and there, I mean, we've disagreed strongly about consensus design. And certainly there's some things that I think Ethereum have done that have been tremendously counterproductive. And there are specific facts you can point to. The creation of Solidity, the way it was built, and the way the smart contracts are designed on Ethereum tend to lead to insecure smart contracts. There were $10.5 billion in hacks last year, a lot of them on Ethereum, a lot of them due to the way that they've done things. I vehemently and fundamentally disagree with the accounts model. I think extended UTXO is the only way to go long term for the kinds of things that we want to do in the cryptocurrency space. We'll let the market decide what they value, and we're competing in that respect, but it's not personal. When have I ever commented on intelligence, appearance, character, or these other things? On the other hand, the Ethereum side sure as hell has commented on my character as a human being with sketchy evidence at best. How's Snoop been? I think Champ's coming up to the ranch here in a little bit when I get back from Mongolia. Snoop's good. We're going to do a music video, man. It's going to be good. We'll figure this out. Got to get the Black Hawk in it, although I think we need to get an exhibition tag for it. So if the FAA, I'm just going to hire fucking Eminem, and we're just going to redo the Without Me song and be like, the FAA won't let me be. Just rewrite all the lyrics. Come on, guys. I love those cattle tags. Why not here in the United States? I'd love to do it in the United States, and I think actually we can. It'd be fun to do it in Wyoming. And we're looking into it. There was Beef Chain, and we did talk to them for a long time. I have my bison. I have 500 of them. I do need to tag them for crypto bison, so we'll look into it. Charles, pardon my ignorance. Was IOHK founded in Hong Kong? IOHK was a Hong Kong holding company. We still have the name from the legacy, but we no longer have any Hong Kong infrastructure at all. It's now US-based C Corporation, and I was not living in Hong Kong. There were two places you would start companies in Asia, Singapore and Hong Kong. Hong Kong is a real city with real people. Singapore is the Dubai of Asia. It's like all one giant mall. It's very pretty and it's very fake. Hong Kong, you would be in like Kowloon and you'd go to some fish store, get something to eat. And you'd order a fish and they just take it out of a tank and go hit it on the sidewalk and go cook it for you. The guy sitting to your left is like some old Chinese billionaire. And he's eaten at the same place for 45 years. And this is where he eats lunch. And so he's like the third richest guy in the entire city. And he's just sitting there eating a fish next to you that they've just killed on the sidewalk and they cook. It's a real city. It's very gringy. And I like that. But it's unfortunately changed quite a bit in the last 5 years. And it's become basically a proxy of China to the extent that there's no political autonomy or differentiation. I would not recommend starting a company in Hong Kong these days. I heard you were collaborating with Solana. It seems like you were quite a fan of their network. Collaboration with Solana would actually make a lot of sense. My brother, a little bit of lore in the family. My brother, before he became a doctor, actually ran a very successful business. It was called NintendoRepairHut.com. And I probably on Wayback Machine, you can see all of his inventory and the things that he did. But let me tell you, he did some great work. He would make for the old NESs like custom molds and actually create the new lids, because the lids would always break on the old Nintendos. And he actually got new pins made for the Nintendos because the original ones were made of too flimsy of a metal. And what happens when you push the game in too hard, it would bend the contacts. That's why when you blow on the cartridge, it actually makes contact better, because it provides a kind of a conductive fluid for it to go from the cartridge to those little pins that get bent. So the ones that my brother would make were made out of a stronger material. So when you put them in, it would fix the flashing light problem on the NES and so forth. So I was thinking, since Solana comes from that world, that maybe there's some legacy there. We could figure out how to turn it on and off, take it in and out, blow on the cartridge, these types of things. I don't know. It might be possible. But my brother doesn't do Nintendo stuff anymore. He's a doctor. Hi, Charles. How's IOHK prepared for a potential recession? We have strong economic moat, and our business lines are strong. That's the nice part about GovTech, is that you have long arc relationships, like the Ethiopia relationship, a multi-year relationship. So we have plenty of things we do, and those things are stable. Obviously, recession forever would not be good for anybody, but we're doing okay. We're not doing any mass layoffs or anything like that. We're continuing to hire. I think we have over 100 open roles right now inside the company that we're hiring for. And those roles are, of course, important. But more broadly, the problem with this recession is that it's impossible to know where the bottom is. We have an issue where the government's just not being honest. First, inflation is transitory and it's not going to happen. And the overwhelming majority of economists agree that there's no inflation. And it's like, everybody's like, well, you fucking crazy? You destroyed all the supply chains in the world and you've printed trillions of dollars out of thin air to shore up the economy. Of course prices are going to go up. You don't need a fucking PhD to figure this out, guys. It's very simple stuff. So then they say, well, if you don't count the price of energy and meat, chicken, meat like pork, chicken, and beef, prices are great. So all the things that we have stockpiles of still somehow have consistent prices, but the things we have to produce under the new regime are more expensive. And you're saying inflation is transitory. So there's no honesty there. So if there's no honesty from the government authorities, then you just kind of have to, put your finger up there and say, how do I feel? What do I think? I think tech got hyper overvalued during the COVID era, and these unrealistic valuations are coming down. Um, I think that there's still value in producing things. That's why I'm the ag tech, but it's not lost on me that hay is $350 a ton right now. It's nuts. It's also not lost on me that there's no reason for diesel and gasoline to be at these prices. Russia doesn't have that much of an influence on the global supply markets. There are other reasons for it. And depending on people's politics, they'll either engage with those reasons or not. So, given that everything's become so political and truth is a rare commodity these days, um, we just navigate as we see fit. And we, of course, are more cautious and less ambitious about certain programs. And, there's things I'd love to do. Like for a long time, I've wanted to create my own trusted hardware modules that are open source. We're probably not going to do that until there's a bull market. There's a lot of products that I would like to pursue and launch and think about and be fun to explore. We're probably going to scale those back until this recession goes away. And it would be nice to live in an economic environment where I felt that the government's my partner in helping me succeed. And instead of an adversary that, the best case scenario is you can avoid the vampire as it rummages through your house and steals your shit. And the worst case is it discovers you and kills you. That's the current relationship we have with the U.S. government as an industry. And it's just got to stop. It's not fair and it's wrong. And I'm quite bitter about it because there's no reason for this to happen. And yes, of course, there are problems. Well, then regulate those problems. Sure, unrestricted speculation is there, but it's the Wall Street guys who are fucking doing it. And I sat next to the Three Arrow Capital guys in Dubai. I told them straight to their faces that Luna looks like a fucking Ponzi scheme. And they said, well, we're making massive returns. You're an idiot. And a month later, they're bankrupt. Yeah, these are real problems. Regulate them then. But don't look at the entire industry and say every single person in the industry is a criminal, bad actor. And I think that's another cause of it. The places that are doing well are being punished, and the places that aren't are being subsidized with cheap money. And the cheap money is destroying the economy. It's creating rampant inflation, and that has to clear through. Exactly. The Fed has never been audited, so everything they tell us is a smoke up your butt. Back in 2011, when we were pushing for audit the Fed, I will never forget this. It was the same story almost everywhere. You talk to a congressman or a senator, and you'd be like, we need to audit the Fed. And their office would say, well, of course they're audited. You're crazy. We don't need to audit them. They're already audited by the normal government processes. And then some staffer would be like, well, actually, Congressman, we don't audit the Federal Reserve. And they would have this look of horror on their face. You're like, you mean to tell me the guys who print all the money in the United States have no oversight? Yes, Mr. Congressman. We need to do something about that. But it was almost like body snatchers. So they get real panicky. They talk to them a month later, and it's like, we do not need to audit the Fed. The Fed is great. We love the Fed. It's like, what happened to the congressman? Where did you go? So no, they got a whole thing going on there, guys, and they don't want to be audited because they don't want us to know what we're going to find. That was Ron Paul. Yeah, we had Tom Woods, and actually Peter Schiff was even part of that back in the old days before he went cray cray. Hey, Charles, how's the research in offline transactions coming along? It does not require research. You just need proof of secure erasure. There's papers on that, and you need one of these. You need a phone with a trusted hardware module. That's all you need. That's all you need, and you're done. Unfortunately, it's stalled right now. There's not much we can do because there's a price point, and it's great for phones, but it needs to be like $1 if it's going to work. Yeah, it did. Peter's bank did get shut down, and Peter's like, "Well, I might accept Bitcoin for payment." And I was like, he said the thing. He said the thing. He said the thing. uh, all right, let's do one more. All right, bonus question. Will your restaurant serve haggis? Oh, it's going to be grand. We're going to have the haggis in a nice sheep's stomach. It'll be, it's just, a bit rough and tumble it would be. It's a 2-course meal. There's one that goes in the mouth and there's one that goes into the toilet. Oh, it'll be grand. Yes, we are going to have haggis. No one will order it. No one will eat it, but we will have it, and it's going to be fucking amazing. And then some weird Scottish guy is going to come in on vacation, and they'll be like, "Oh, it's a finally America makes sense to me. I was saying, Wheatland, what are you doing?" I watched a video by Andrew Westberg, SPO for Cardano, saying IOG owned all 7 keys. We do not own them. There's delegated authority, but we have never been the legal owner of all 7. So it's just a lie. It's a straight up lie. It's delegated authority, and it's an agreement between the 3 entities so that we can do the hard forks that are pre-agreed on the roadmap. That system is being rotated out, and when a members-based open source project turns on, the whole system will be put over there. For key management, you have 4 properties. You have the legal owner, you have the custodians who actually hold the keys, you have the signers, usually a different party with delegated authority, and then you have the authorizers. The big one is here, the authorizers. Okay, the other parts, those can be put on chain or off chain. It just depends on how much risk you want to take. But here is the voting system. And if a relative majority wants to do it, let them do it. That's what Catalyst is bringing. Okay, and we're almost at that point. As for the other components, it's transferred over to a member-space thing, and it goes from a set of 3 to arbitrarily large set. The set of signers can be 100. Guys, it's not rocket science, and people are making a mountain out of a fucking molehill. There's a roadmap to execute. All right, come on, give me a good one to add. Are you really part Italian? Yes, sir, I am. Quarter Italian. And I can even post my 23andMe results if you want to see that. Please touch on Lace again. Good question to end on. So Lace is one of my favorite projects. We're working real hard on it. We will have an announcement later on Lace, but I will say this. I think it long-term is going to be one of the best wallets in the entire cryptocurrency industry and the first for a lot of things. And finally, to end, Charles, have you ever heard of Göbekli Tepe, the ancient monolithic structure from 9,500 BC that suggests humanity's history goes further back than thought? There's a very interesting theory about this. So some people believe that around 10,000, 11,000 BC, there was an ancient empire. This is kind of the Atlantean thing. And that those people were very widespread across the entire world, which is why we have architectural reoccurrences like pyramids and certain icons and certain gods and so forth. And that a catastrophic event occurred, probably a meteor strike or some sort of celestial body striking into the earth that put the earth, or a massive volcanic eruption that put the earth into a state where life became very difficult for a period of time. So areas flooded that shouldn't have flooded, and it would destroy a high population empire. The rulers of that empire, the leadership, the smart people who survived, they would fled around the world, and then the places that they fled to, like Turkey, where Göbekli Tepe is, or Egypt, eventually started imprinting their culture. Now, we have some ancient sources like Plato, and what's really interesting is Plato's description of Atlantis and his timelines match perfectly with things that we discovered in the Arctic many years later about a catastrophic event that occurred about 11,000 years ago. So who knows if it's true or not? Unfortunately, the archaeological evidence is very bad because things don't tend to survive that long. The reason why Tepe survived so long was that it was buried, and it looks like on purpose somebody actually covered it over. Maybe they overthrew their tyrants. But it would make a lot of sense. Language has been around for a long time. Empires come and go, and we discover new things all the time. So it could make sense that this exists. And my bet is if we were to discover it, we'd discover it in South America, because that is the least investigated from an archaeological perspective of all continents. And there are empires there as ancient as Egypt, and maybe even further back. And perhaps the jungles preserve something. Or maybe we'll discover it in the sands of Egypt. Who knows? Anyway, as Paul Harvey would say, that's the rest of the story. Thank you all for another wonderful AMA. I'm going to go now and get some breakfast and get prepared for the graduation event tonight. It's good to be here in Mongolia. Cheers.